Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Project Hell. Now this is post-commentary. I have done the lap already. I actually took 3 attempts with the recording on. Now what I did to actually get the R8 around the track was I just stiffened the suspension up as tight as it could possibly go, so there's very little suspension movement. Now this did cause an issue, and you can see here I realised I had another issue where I didn't have the full overlay up like I usually do. This did cause an issue with handling, and you'll see over the course of this, and this is the first attempt, I'm going to bring it around to where I failed just to give you an idea of how badly the car handled. You'll see that I'm almost constantly moving the wheel. I have to keep the wheel moving to keep the car steady. It liked understeering quite a lot on corner entry, and every time I put down the throttle, you see oh, you won't see it here. You might see, yeah, very briefly there for just a split second, the traction control took over. This thing, every time I put down full throttle, it just wanted to oversteer. And this is one of the worst corners for the kind of double right at the end of the big long straight. That is really tough to get around. But all in all, it wasn't actually as bad as I'd feared with the full suspension. I think here I had to actually countersteer just a bit. But yeah, it just didn't want to go correctly, and it just liked going sideways and trying to spin out, and every time I entered a corner it would decide, oh nope, I don't want to turn now. So maybe I had to take the corners a bit slower than I would have liked to otherwise. And you know, it was trying to manage the car rather than push the car. But all in all, I mean, it wasn't the worst car by any means. And I think, yes, just going up here we have our first failure. So coming up here, take it nice and tight into the apex, put on the throttle a bit too much, we get a cut track, game over. So here's the second attempt. We're a bit further down the track now, the fastest section, and the car starts to get a small bit away from me. As I said, I was managing the car quite a lot. Through here at a nice high speed, bit wide, and cut track. So I get a bit annoyed and slam the brakes. But here is the full lap, I believe. There may be a failure in this one as well. So I won't really start commentating on the lap until we get around to the actual start lap. So nice exit of the final corner there with a bit of traction control, bring it out nice and wide, and across the line in third gear with rev limiter. Down to second, about 80 kilometers an hour. I took it a bit low. I wasn't really, I couldn't pay attention to the dials or anything, so I was just listening to the car and hearing it kind of revving up and hitting the point where I kind of decided that's my my shifting point. So you'll hear it hit the rev limiter because I'm a bit slow on that occasionally. The force feedback graph, which is a yellow line that's going absolutely mental 90% of the time, that's kind of a demonstration of how crazy this car is, and how necessary the madness is. Every time I hit the brakes, every time the steering went light. And yeah, coming through a quite fast corner over 100 miles an hour, I had very little sensation of steering. That curb, I always find, I found every single time I hit that curb, it helped me get around the corner. And again here, very little sensation of steering, and then it kind of grips all at once. Going down here, I was a bit slower than I would have liked to be, but it worked. And you'll notice I rarely, if ever, use second gear. It's because third is just a better gear for pulling out of the corner. First and second in this are very, very short gears, so third is probably the best option. Here I screwed up and went sideways through the first section of Ednar Forest, and down to second for the final section, and just watch out, you know, second, accelerate in third, immediately. Second was just so that I had the grip going around the corner. It was a necessary thing. Through here I took a bit more speed off than I would have liked, and a bit slower on the throttle after the first mistake. That was a theme when I was doing the laps. And this is one of the worst sections because it's downhill braking and the car is just trying to get away from you. So, you know, the only way I could have got around there was by getting up on the curb like that. Here the car just slides a lot. Slowing down probably a bit more than I needed to for this corner, for Dreifach rechts, but it was the only way I could get around. This hairpin was hellish, but I think this was one of the few occasions where I actually got it right. And I actually think, thinking back, this was probably, I had unintentionally probably got Assetto Corsa physics in by stiffening the suspension up to something stupid. You know, it wasn't good from a project car's point of view, but in terms of realistic physics, where the car is difficult to drive and not just glued to the road, it was probably about right. Because I was lifting places where I normally wouldn't have to, and having to let the car drift out in places where normally I just nailed the throttle and it would go, and rolling the car a bit more than I'm used to. But with the stiff suspension, the wheel glitch that I had experienced quite a lot in the past didn't happen, so I'm thinking the issue is actually that the suspension settings are good for most tracks, but just the Nordschleife screws them over, and that's the entire problem. So around here we go, around what I call Dirt Rally. I don't know the actual name of the corner. But I mean, it's a good car, you can do a good lap. You just have to, really kind of paradoxically, to get a good setup you have to intentionally make a bad one. Because in no other car do you want the suspension as stiff as it has to be in this thing. And obviously I spun out of the carousel on the actual fast lap. I was wondering why, because in practice I got a 7:36.3. I was wondering, looking at the time, because I'd forgotten that spin had happened. I was so focused on getting the car around the rest of the lap. That was terrifying. I thought I'd screwed the lap up there and just didn't get the notification, because sometimes the notification doesn't appear. In practice in this car I did a 7-minute 36.3 second lap. And that was in free practice, just testing that the setup was actually going to work. So there's no record of this lap anywhere other than my little timesheet. And coming through here, I'm just having to lift and kind of coast through every corner, desperately trying to get the throttle on an apex every so often, but knowing at the same time that the car is going to want to try and spin out every time I do it. And at the end of the video, I actually showed a bit of a replay, just to kind of demonstrate how mad this car can be, how ridiculously sideways this thing gets through every corner. Because it's not entirely obvious in the footage, where it's just kind of like, oh, the car's pointing in the right direction. It's more or less correct. It's not a very good demonstration of how ridiculously sideways and how crazy the car gets. Because I was getting all of this sensation just through the wheel. You know, I turn in and because I'm on the brakes, there's absolutely no sensation, there's no weight on the front wheels. You could see it there when I was braking hard, that I was moving the wheel about left and right, just trying to get some sensation, trying to get the front wheels to grip up a bit. And I think I was trying to counteract a spin as well, because sometimes the car would try and spin out under braking. I do remember that. There I hit a bump and had to do a bit of quick counter steering. Coming up along the big straight now, and this was really nice. I actually really enjoyed doing this straight in this car, because if you watch the speedometer, it's just going up at a pretty much constant rate. It's just climbing nice and slowly, and there's no real stoppages in it, and it just felt really good going along the straight. Now it will slow down here because we're going uphill, but there's still enough torque that we're gaining speed. I mean, that's the insane thing, is this car is so full of torque that I got up to, what, 286 kilometers an hour. And I actually had to lay off the throttle there. I knew I had to, because in practice the car wasn't too happy. This is where I made a big mistake. Probably the second biggest mistake of the lap was I didn't brake early enough for the bus stop hairpin, or chicane there, through the final corner, and out of it across the line to set a 7-minute 41.682 second lap, which you'll see the pause screen momentarily because I had to get into replay, and I decided to just do a bit of looking at the car to see if I'd managed to damage it at all. Nope, it's still pristine condition. It's absolutely maniacally fast. So there's our time of 41.6, and here's just an example of how silly the car is. Just going through that corner, the tail kicked out. Unfortunately, there's no outside cameras in this area, and I did have the mouse on the screen, which in hindsight was a mistake. But, you know, coming through here, the back of the car slides. Through this corner, the back of the car kicks out and throws up a bit of smoke because it's not happy. Braking into here, and the car's mostly straight coming through that corner, actually. One of the few corners that it is. But it just... every bump was felt, every little tiny little thing, and like coming through here, it's almost completely sideways. There's a quite severe angle to the car, whereas normally it looked like it was going around the turn. It was just kind of like, well, it's facing in this direction and going in a completely different one. And this thing, I believe, is 4-wheel drive. The R8 V10 Plus is a 4-wheel drive car. Down along the main straight, there's a wonderful camera angle here where it just shows the madness of the speed, and you know, it's still accelerating, you know, coming through here, and it's, oh, there's the car, it's gone. That's a wonderful camera angle. Coming down along here, and you can see the car's just not happy at all about having to turn. That's where I screwed up. I think it actually does drift out over the final corner as well, if memory serves. Yeah, the car went around that kind of sideways. And once again, across the line and slowing down to stop on the actual racing line. So thank you all very much for watching. Until next time, stay safe and goodbye.